In the beginning of this week's Parsha, Pinchas is given an award. He's given a bris shalom, a covenant of peace. Why was he given this bris shalom? Why was he given the covenant of peace? There were two evil people, Cozbi and Zimri, who were performing a terrible act, a terrible sin in public. And Pinchas came along, he took a spear, and he brutally murdered both of them. And because of that, he was given the bris shalom, the covenant of peace. And the obvious question is that even if that was the appropriate thing for Pinchas to do, even if that was what he was supposed to do at that moment, why was he given the bris shalom, a covenant of peace? Why wasn't he given an award for his strength, for his honor? Why peace? It doesn't seem like what he did was a peaceful act. And I think the answer is as follows, that our sages tell us that every character trait, every midah, has to be used in the appropriate way. There's no midah that is never supposed to be used. Even something like anger, there's a time when a person should be angry. There's a time when jealousy could be a motivator for a person to do better. Every midah, every character trait, the word midah means a measure. You can't have too much of it, and you can't have too little of it. It has to be just the right amount. And therefore, Pinchas had just mastered the art of peace. If he would not have acted in such a way, he would have been using too much peace. Because although peace is an amazing thing, if a person doesn't take action against sinners, usually that doesn't require taking a spear, but if a person doesn't respond when appropriate to respond, then that's also not an appropriate amount of shalom. If a person gets into fights too much and is too violent, of course, that's not the appropriate amount of shalom. But if a person, when appropriate, doesn't act, doesn't fight, doesn't do what's necessary for Hashem and calls it peace, that's also not the appropriate amount of shalom. So the reason why Hashem gave Pinchas the brisi shalom, the covenant of peace, was not because he overused peace. It's not because he had an exorbitant amount of peace. It's because he had the right amount of peace. Not too much, not too little. Pinchas, very likely by nature, was a very calm person, and it was likely very hard for him to perform this act of violence. Hashem said, Pinchas, I see you've mastered peace. Perhaps until now you would have been too peaceful. You would have been too quiet. You wouldn't have taken action when you weren't supposed to. But now I see that you know the exact right amount of peace which is necessary. Not too much and not too little. It's a very tricky thing. However, we have to realize that every midah, every attribute could be used for Hashem. And we have to make sure not to use too much, but also not too little. Almost always, it's the appropriate path to take is the peaceful, is the calm one, is the not violent one. But we have to remember that no matter what Hashem asks of us, no matter what the situation calls for, if that's the right thing to do, if that's the appropriate thing to do, we have to do what's right for Hashem. Have a great, great Shabbos.